Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And Blizzard has officially released all of the new features coming into midnight. And in today's video, I wanted to review them, talk about them, and see which ones are really getting me excited. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So they have amalgamated everything into one summary, and then we're going to dive into the specifics of things like the new specialization for Demon Hunter to really kind of see its possible viability and how it's going to fit into the game as a whole. But their list of new features basically is summarized by this. Obviously, there's going to be a new campaign. There always is. We're going to be going up to level 90. There are going to be new talents for all classes. That's a big one, because I think for a lot of people, we were kind of thinking it was going to be pretty scarce as far as new talents for classes, because it just done so much class design in the last two expansions, but they're going to be layering on even more. So obviously I'm going to be covering that here on the channel, likely jumping into the alpha, the beta as soon as possible to see what is going on as far as class design, because I think that is the integral vehicle of the game. It's the lens that you see the game through, and it's the most important component. So that's something that I always jump on first. We're getting 4 new zones and world content. The new city hub is going to be Silver Moon City. You might be saying, well, I'm Alliance. What does that mean? Apparently, there's going to be like a little sub area of Silver Moon City that's going to be dedicated to you. And if you go outside of those city bounds, you're probably not going to have a good time. But maybe there's going to be some funny world PvP. I don't know. I think it's cool that they're making Silver Moon City relevant again. I think the fact that they have all of these old assets that have just been sitting around collecting dust is a complete waste of art, complete waste of the zones, and it's cool that they can now utilize them and develop them and make it a living, breathing world instead of just like caking on 4 new zones, 4 new zones, 4 new zones, then every other old zone just becomes more irrelevant. So I think it's cool that they're fusing in the old world along with some new zones as well. But what do you think about that? Obviously, player housing, this is a big one that everybody has been talking about. I think for players that want it, it's going to be very epic. For players who maybe aren't into that kind of like aesthetic design, you might not spend a lot of time here. I think that it's entirely intended for that specific player base. The new race, so the Haranir, a lot of people anticipated this to be for the War Within, given that they were in the cinematic, and we saw a little bit of them in the Spider Zone in Ashkahet, but didn't really kind of develop it. But I think the most interesting part of that is that it's going to be able to be a druid. So I main a druid, so I'm curious to see what the ratios are for that. Obviously, the new Demon Hunter spec is the Devourer, which is going to be that Void Demon Hunter, and it also means that Void Elves will also be able to be Demon Hunters. If you didn't think Demon Hunter had enough mobility, now you're going to be able to teleport. Honestly, Void Elf is going to be really good. You get a damage amplifying modification, although the spell pushback might be important when we look into the specifics here of Devourer, because I do think that it is going to need to cast spells, so that pushback suppression could actually make Void Elf almost mandatory for it. We're getting 8 new dungeons and 3 new raids, 10 new delves and 1 new Nemesis delve, which is just tons of PvE content. The prey system, which is going to be kind of like Monster Hunter, where you go around and you attack really big baddies. Kind of hoping that this is going to build up a lot of world PvP as well, given that this is going to be like consolidating players, and maybe players won't play with war mode on unless there's war mode benefits to the prey system, which I hope they do. There's new activities. That's pretty blank and naked there. Not a lot going on there. The new PvP battleground and the PvP training grounds. Now, I've talked about this for a while, that like having player versus AI to help people get into PvP and figure out their class, their binds and stuff like that is a really important thing. So it's good they're doing it. I still kind of think that they should put AI healers at 1500 rating and below for solo queue PvP, mostly to give people faster queues, because at 1500 rating and lower, unless they tell you it's an AI healer, you're probably not going to be able to even know. And you'd probably at that rating rather just get instant queues, get practice, press your buttons, and kind of climb the ranks a little bit before getting in. And obviously this is something that should only happen once your queue goes past like a certain allotted amount of time, because everyone's complaining about the queue times. I think getting new players in is rough, so making the instant queues for new players at lower rating and getting the practice is probably the most important thing for kind of cultivating the bottom end of the ladder up, which is where the game is obviously suffering, right? Top end of the ladder, we're doing okay. Bottom end's kind of suffering, kind of withering. So I would like to see that. Interface updates are big as well. Very curious to see what's going on with this specifically. And they're updating their leveling experience to try and make it a bit smoother and to train players to actually have some important skills like landing interrupts by the time they reach max level, instead of kind of just aimlessly throwing you around into zones that aren't relevant to the current story, and you just kind of like wander around and meander around, right? Like basically they're iterating on every single piece of feedback I've seen any big content creator give ever. Day 9 did a leveling kind of thing with World of Warcraft, and he had really negative feedback for the leveling experience. Now they're iterating on all of that. Bellular Gaming has uploaded videos that is talking about how, where's the battleground content? Like, we need some battleground content. I don't understand where it is. They're doing battleground content. A lot of players have said that they kind of miss the old zones, the old world. They're iterating, they're incorporating the old world, they're incorporating the old zones. Players have complained about add-ons for a very long time at this point. They're deleting the add-ons. They're updating the baseline UI. They're listening to feedback when their baseline add-on additions are not that interesting. I mean, everything is basically culminating into Midnight possibly being the best World of Warcraft experience we've ever had. The only thing, at least for myself personally, that I would like is kind of an update to the rewards for PvP, changing Gladiator, making it so you get the Gladiator mount at 1800 rating, maybe 50 wins above 1800, and it has no armor, and you unlock its armor pieces from all of the PvP content. You could do 2v2 and get different shoulder colors, and do 3v3 and do whatever. You can get different color armors to put on your dragon throughout the season. So more players can actually get the mount, because relatively speaking, it's just like impossibly difficult to get, which is kind of cool in its own right. It still would be impossibly difficult to get it with like maxed out color armor from a specific bracket, but at least you can get a mount. Because right now it just seems like the rewards are very scarce. The rating system is very kind of just dated at this point, but we haven't seen any news for that. Maybe that's something that they will talk about in a post that isn't like an official release, right? Like, I wouldn't want to talk about those types of details when I'm announcing an expansion, right? As far as hyping people up. But maybe it also means that they're not going to happen at all. We kind of have to wait and see with that one. I'm really hoping that it does end up happening. But they've got a bunch of like info tabs here for the new race, for the new class, to see what's basically going to be available. It's obviously available to both Horde, the Alliance. It could be a Druid, Hunter, Mage, Monk, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, or Warrior. So a lot of classes are going to be able to be this. I don't know if they've posted anything as far as actual racials. It's kind of like a lot more lore, kind of just introducing us to why they're relevant. Yeah, and we don't see any specifics on this update, unfortunately, for racials, which would be awesome to get. We've got 100 comments though talking about this. Actually, maybe they talked about it a little bit. No thanks, I will pass on the half-baked Night Elf copy. I mean, it's supposed to be a troll and a Night Elf, right? That was my understanding. I mean, I can agree with the fact that they literally just reskin dwarves like 10 billion times. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe dwarves are just the most popular race, so they just keep copy pasting them over and over and over. But we'll have to see. I feel like this one is at least somewhat significantly more unique than a dwarf, so I don't think I'm going to be nearly as harsh about that. But then we've got Void Demon Hunters. So they've got the ability examples listed here. So Void Metamorphosis. After reaping enough souls, you gain access to your iconic Demon Hunter transformation with a twist. No cooldown and no set duration. After entering Void Metamorphosis, you'll gain substantially increased power. Your Void Ray's mechanics change completely, and your Fury will rapidly drain. Your ability to drain, consume, and harvest souls will determine how long and how powerful this transformation will be. So it looks like it's a cooldown you can activate that you can maintain, like Breath of Syndragosa or the Void form from Shadow Priests in Legion. It sounds fun on paper, but ends up being pretty rough if like your tank doesn't do a pull in time and then your buff runs out, or in PvP you get CC'd. So I mean, there's gonna have to be some PvP talents around this to aid with its possible viability, because if it's integral that you maintain this for any significant amount of time to be relevant, it could have a lot of holes in it. So that's my main concern for it at the moment. Obviously it looks sick, void lasers. Void Ray is a void corrupted version of I-Beam. You'll get a longer range and cast more frequently, but still be just as deadly. So you're gonna be like that X-Men. I can't remember his name, and I feel really bad for not remembering. Cyclops. You're gonna be like Cyclops. Just bzz, 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 bzz. Like Cyclops fantasy coming in. Collapsing Star. Now I think this is like the core part of the class. Collapsing Star is a substantial portion of your Void Metamorphosis damage. It's going to come from this earth-shattering finisher, Collapsing Star. After consuming a veritable mountain of souls, you will channel their power into one destructive blast that'll leave your enemies in a heaping pile of ash. Every time you cast Collapsing Star in Void Metamorphosis, it gets stronger. Now, it's a 25-yard range, and it's a 2.5 second cast. So this thing is like a full moon. That's a really slow cast. And a very short range. So again, in PvP, likelihood you're getting that off is pretty low. I would, especially if you get kicked on it and then you can't I-beam, unless they're going to make it non-interruptible. Obviously, it's definitely an option for them. But what would be funny is if this thing's a 2.5 second cast and it hits less hard than a random hammer from a Ret Paladin in PvP. That's what my anticipation maybe for it would be. Channel an immense amount of void energy into a single cataclysmic attack, dealing cosmic damage to your target and all nearby enemies. So obviously this spec is about ramping, fueling, and like getting a lot of uptime and hitting kind of that peak moment. That's the fantasy for it. While you cast Collapsing Star, your Fury Drain is paused though. So you could use this if you got rooted in PvP and start just casting it so you don't fall out of void form. So there's gonna be like maybe a little bit of extra strategy involved with that, which is a cool little feature added on there. For a little extra void when in the Devourer spec, all Demon Hunter's abilities will use void effects and icons, even abilities that are shared across all 3 specs. I think it's talking like Fellblade. You're going to have all the same functionality of Havoc. I wonder which spells they'll pick between Vengeance or Havoc. Like, will you get the leap that you get from Vengeance, or will you get the dash, the Fell Rush? You know, how are they going to choose that? Are they going to intermingle it? Like, you get some stuff from Havoc, some stuff from Vengeance? Because I think your hero talent tree shares with Vengeance. I might share with both actually. So maybe they'll do a little bit of like a weird mix of the two, so you get like a unique experience. I think that would be cooler than just copying Havoc or copying Vengeance entirely. Obviously, there's gonna be new hero talent trees for it. The Annihilator, the new tree is shared with the Vengeance Demon Hunter, and Devourer Demon Hunters will also gain access to the Scarred hero talent tree, formerly Fell Scarred, because it would be rough if somehow you're. I don't understand the lore of this spec. It was like, if you were a Demon Hunter, you start in the Demon Hunter questing zone, you were Fell infused, then later you're Void infused. You just randomly forgot how to use Fell entirely, I guess. But then you can just respec for 5 seconds and immediately relearn how to do it. I don't know. This is a lot of effort put into that. And then obviously you're going to be able to be Void Elf, which again, if this is a 2.5 second cast and you're going to be casting I-beams a lot, although I don't think I-beam has pushback on it, maybe they'll just take pushback off of the spec entirely, because this seems like they've tried to convert a lot of melee classes into these mid-range classes, but this is the one that kind of looks like you're going to be standing still to cast, which is a lot different. All the other mid-range ones, either you can move and cast with Lazish and Disintegrate, or you just instant cast everything like a Ret Paladin. This is like the first mid-range caster that's going to actually cast, which could be really bad, right? It could be really bad, just because you're just in the thick of it, right? Like, you're going to get stunned, you're going to get locked down, you're going to get destroyed as a result of it. I'm interested to see how it develops. This is obviously, I think, a very first kind of glance at what it's going to have. But my anticipation for it is that its viability is on a very small, thin thread as far as its potency. But this is definitely the thing that's got the most attention for me, as well as the class changes. So we'll be jumping into that. It seems like this update isn't as thorough as I was hoping it to be, but definitely got at least a little bit of a glimpse into the reality of Midnight here as they've consolidated a lot of the information. And I'll have this linked in the description down below as well if you want to dive deeper into any of it yourself. But other than that, that's it for me here in today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.